Namaste, dear listeners, and welcome to the Iowa channel Astro in with Avi. Oneness in astrology and spirituality, bringing in awareness by Avi. On my previous podcast, I've discussed or I've answered a question on how to untangle yourself from a karmic soul tie, attachment, or relationship. Now, today I'm going to talk about the consequences of entering into a relationship unhealed, or how toxic relationships are formed. Now, I think that's the best way to approach it, how toxic relationships are formed. Now, if you listen to my previous podcast, I have discussed very briefly on the ways that you can overcome or you can untangle yourself from karmic attachments. Now, if you don't do that, most human beings, they don't get themselves untangled from the karmic attachments or their trauma because they don't have the ability to do so. Neither are they consistent, neither they'll take ownership of their own development areas because it dents the ego. So they try to forge new relationships to fill in that space, a space in inverted commas, because it's not real. There's no actual space you're filling. All you're doing is you're trying to fill in a new habit or a new addiction, an addiction, because you've got a habit, and that habit is, you know what, I need to have somebody there. And because the person is no longer there, now because we are habitual in nature, we're not born that way, we've been conditioned that way. So we try to substitute this with another piece of life, or we enter into a new relationship. And the consequences of this is disastrous. Number one, such an individual has not implemented the development areas in his or her life. Therefore, the ego starts to expand because, wait a minute, I'm in a new relationship. There's nothing for me to do here. I'm not. I'm just gonna move on in life. I'm just gonna apply. Just be myself because I'm in a new relationship. I'm happy, and yeah. But you see, what happens here is the person has spent enough time being alone to understand the beauty of being alone, because there's a lot of fear of being alone. Why? Because we have a habit of always being with somebody, and because of that we start to mistreat or ill treat the other person, and it only gets worse. The more the addiction grows, the more the self is not allowed to be alone. The addiction gets bigger and the toxicity starts to grow along with the ego. Remember, ego is the toxic nature. Ego is the root, and toxicity is the consequences of an inflated ego. So everything boils down to the ego. The ego self, the false identification. So the consequences of this year brings in toxicity into relationships, and there you have it. You've now entered a new relationship. The other person and you are very, very happy. And then comes the shit show where there's a bit of disagreements. And then guess what? You are such a person where you feel that you've entered into a new relationship and it wasn't difficult for you to find somebody else. Now you feel, hey, wait a minute. If you don't like it, I've been through a breakup before. I will find somebody else and I will go. So you think it's very easy to just move from one to the next, which is easy. But guess what? You are inviting the same trauma into the relationships because you attract exactly what you are. And if you've listened to one of my older podcasts, I've explained how the universe works. The universe listens to what you are and it delivers. Well, it doesn't actually listen, it matches your vibration. So you don't know this and you think, you know what, you can just move to a new relationship. And this is how the cycle continues, and everybody gets worse and worse and worse. And you will see a lot of relationships today, people that have entered 5, 6, 7 different relationships compared to whom they were in most cases. People, I'm not saying for everybody, but in most cases, who I see or who come to my desk for help, these people have never healed from the first relationship. They are suffering their first relationship trauma, which is being projected onto the newer relationships. And guess what? Sometimes, not sometimes, in most cases, you can never, ever pull away that which you have done, said or done, and you may be forgiven, but it's never forgotten. Therefore, the people that you have hurt through your toxicity because of the false ego, forgiveness is there, but you will never get that best of them. You will never get the best of them because They know that you are a person that you're forgiven, but they are trying to protect themselves away from you. So this is, in the end, the toxic person, in the end, they eventually be alone. In most cases, they end up alone. Why? Because the body starts to degenerate, the body starts to fade away, wither away, and your attraction starts to fall away, which dents the ego even more. So it becomes even more difficult for you to attract the new piece of life. And most of the people at your age at that given time, they already have much experience to know what they should get themselves into or not. So the ego, it only destroys you at the end in a relationship. So I hope this answers the question on the consequences of not being healed from a traumatic relationship that you've been in. The consequences are only disastrous to you in the end. In worst case, it's disastrous to you. Um, Everybody has the ability to develop. It's just that, unfortunately, most human beings are too attached to the ego self, and they feel that, with social media today, it's not difficult for me to substitute you. You just another piece of life. I've been through this before. Radi radi radi. And then, this chain. It's a cycle of events which brings about the whole of humanity, pretty much the whole of humanity, vibrating extremely low. Now, with such consciousness collectively vibrating so low, what do you think this earth is drawing in? It's drawing in all that negative energy. So, where is the negative energy coming from? It's coming from people like you and I. The negative energy is not coming from the devils out there. We are the devils. We are attracting, we are releasing negative energy into the earth, into the atmosphere. And guess what the universe is gonna deliver in return? To deliver exactly matching energy onto the earth. So we've attracted that. So it all starts from us. Collectively, it starts from one person. And if each person knows this here, and if each person applies this here, then collectively the problem will be sorted. There'll be enough light to nullify the darkness. Unfortunately, today it's not that case, but we are hoping for such. Thank you very, very much, dear listeners, for listening to my podcast. And I hope you enjoyed the session. Please make sure you subscribe, like, and share this podcast with many people that you think would benefit from such deep insights. Jai Shri Ram, Om Namah Shivaya, Jai Shri Krishna, and Hari Bol. Goodbye.